What's up, everybody? My name is Andrew Street, and this is an episode of Street Talk. On today's episode of Street Talk, I want to talk about peripherals in video games. More specifically, a peripheral that has been surrounding the video game industry and has been taking it by storm. It is something that everyone is talking about, and that is virtual reality. So now, unless you've been living in solitude for the past year, you would have seen the industry's massive push for virtual reality. Major players like Valve and HTC, Oculus, Sony, and Samsung are all looking to kick open the floodgates on this new way to experience entertainment. Now, the majority of the last year I spent being somewhat pessimistic about virtual reality. I was never sure of the consumer implications of it. I was worried about it being gimmicky, overpriced, and being abandoned shortly after launch because no one was developing games for it and thus no one was buying it, and it's the never-ending cycle like we saw with motion controls. And we know how much of a track record the industry has with peripherals, so I was really somewhat cautious about this major push for it, not to mention that there are room for gimmicky implementations in games, which is not something I want. Myself, I've been thinking, like many others have said, is that for this to be a success, we need to see gameplay experiences that really win us over, things that win over not only the hardcore, but the mass consumer. It has to be good, it has to be not shoehorned in, and it has to be built from the ground up for virtual reality to these experiences that you can't get anywhere else and things that feel right in that space. Not only that, but you need to make sure that it's affordable, that it's marketed and messaged correctly, and I think the biggest thing is making people try this. So having kiosks at the mall, at Walmart, at Target, so that people can put on an Oculus or a PlayStation VR or a Samsung Gear VR and say, wow, this is an experience like no other. Because without that, you can message it to them as much as you want, but until they try it, they don't really get the experience of what it's like to actually play it. Now, a lot of my feelings changed this past December at PlayStation Experience when I got to try VR firsthand. It was here that I got to play some PlayStation VR demos like Kitchen, the London Heist, and World War II, and I was really won over on a gameplay front. I saw the potential of games that are built from the ground up to incorporate VR and about the experiences that they offer. And at the risk of hyperbolizing, I would say that it's an experience like no other. Sitting down and playing these demos, I was completely floored. I could not believe the way that I was interacting with a game, the fluidity of the motions that I was committing, just turning around, using a gun, picking things up, searching through drawers. In Kitchen, I couldn't believe how immersed and how terrified I actually was of the things that were going on around me. It was really not jarring, but influential in the way that it was just so immersive, and I could not get over that. And it really, I left and walked out of that dude's demo kiosks with a smile on my face, and all I could do was tell every single person who had not experienced that to go and play it, because it was just unlike anything I had ever done, and it really won me over. Now, of course, believing in virtual reality, having a implementation into video games, is nothing along the lines of saying I believe that it has consumer viability and that it will survive within the market, because I'm still somewhat eerie on how that's going to work. On the topic of pricing and how it's going to appeal to consumers, at the Consumer Electronics Expo this past week, Oculus came out and said, we are opening pre-orders for our Oculus Rift headset, and they're opening at $599. Now, I must say that this floored a lot of people. Nobody was really expecting, I don't think, for it to be this high. I mean, some were, some weren't. I believe in the past, Palmer Luckey, CEO of Oculus, has stated that he was aiming for the $300 range, so $600 is quite far from that. And it's safe to say the internet was angry. Not that that ever happens. It's never happened. This is the first time. So why are they angry? It seems that $599 is too high of a price for them to be paying for this cutting-edge technology. And they're also very angry because the bundle that Oculus is coming with only comes with the headset and the tracking camera, an Xbox One controller, which is an odd inclusion because you would imagine most people have a Xbox One controller already. And it comes with 2 free games, one of which is Eve Valkyrie. Now, it does not include the Oculus Touch controllers, which are not releasing yet, and those will cost at least a minimum of you have to imagine, $100 plus down the line. So people were angry that those weren't included, and they were simply floored by the high price. I mean, if just taking a glance at message boards and critics around the internet, you would have saw the disdain for this high price tag. Everybody's shouting that they're not going to buy it, they're not going to buy it, they are not going to buy it. But nonetheless, pre-orders on the Oculus website have sold out. So I guess take that for what you will. I mean, that could say that the people saying they're not going to buy it and that it's too expensive is the vocal minority, or it could say that Oculus really didn't have that much stock on their website, and that might be a reason. Now, I understand that virtual reality is bleeding edge technology. That can somewhat justify the high price of it. I mean, if you look at a monitor, a 4K monitor with G-Sync capabilities and all the accoutrements, you're looking at a hefty price tag there. I mean, even Palmer Luckey has come out, and whether this is truthful or not, has stated that despite the high price tag of Oculus VR, they are not making a profit on these. They're taking a loss on every single unit that they sell. Now, the high price of Oculus does have me concerned. Like I said, I understand that this is bleeding edge technology, so the high cost, somewhat justifiable, I would believe, but it still makes it difficult for the mass consumer and even a lot of the hardcore audience, I believe, to want to pick up this item. You know, at $599, that's $600 plus the cost to upgrade your PC or maybe build a new PC that's capable of handling or, you know, having the processing power that's necessary for a virtual reality headset. So you would think that they'd want to go as cheap as possible, and maybe this is as cheap as possible for them, but it still seems a little too high to garner any of the mass market. You're looking at a really, I think, smaller audience of hardcore players that are going to be picking up the Oculus Rift. I think that this sets the floor for competition to swoop in and introduce VR at a much cheaper price, and if they can out-tech Oculus for cheaper, then I think they're looking good. And, you know, I think the biggest person people are looking at is Valve and HTC with their Vive, but I don't really agree that Vive is going to be cheaper than Oculus. At most, I think it'll be the same price, maybe including the touch controllers, but I almost think that Vive might be more expensive considering that the technology in Vive seems to be a bit more advanced than what we're seeing in Oculus. Now, I think Sony might have the biggest potential to gain a foothold in the VR market, the emerging VR market, mainly because PS4s have sold 36 million units at this point. That's 36 million people who already have the hardware capable of running PlayStation VR. So if they can come out and say, look at all these games we have, look at this launch lineup, look at the price, everything is great. If you can get it in that $300 or under $400 price range for PlayStation VR, I think that they have a potential hit on their hands. Like I said, because there's so many PS4s out there and there's no need to worry about upgrading or meeting a minimum requirement of specs, I think that the PlayStation VR coupled with a correct price amount and the right lineup of games at launch really has potential to, you know, drive it home to the mass consumers. Not to mention, PlayStation has a great marketplace right now. They are really speaking to the majority of consumers. People are like really on the wagon with PlayStation right now. They're still riding that wave of good publicity from their original release. So I think that they really have an opportunity here to kick open the door on VR and say, we're here for the mass market and we're gonna get them. While PSVR has the potential to grab the mass market with their market share and a competitive pricing and great lineup of games, in addition to their already established brand, I don't think that they can outclass Oculus and Vive in terms of overall quality, in build quality maybe, and even game quality, because Oculus and Vive are on PC, where the system requirements are higher and you're gonna have better specs. We're gonna see games that look better, probably run better, and just more open source abilities, which pushes it beyond games and more entertainment. VR porn. I know a lot of people are excited about that. Probably won't see that on PlayStation VR. Definitely you'll see it on Oculus and Vive. I'll bet on that. Basically, I'm almost in the same position. I think VR has potential. I think that in terms of gameplay and in terms of movies and in terms of these awesome experiences, I think that VR is there and it's being brought to us. It's being delivered. These developers are really hitting home and saying, like, we are ready to make these experiences, but we need to make sure that the market is there. We need to make sure that consumers like myself and like more mainstream consumers who aren't passionate about it like we are ready to adopt this. And to get them ready to adopt it, like I said, we need clear messaging and we need price that's probably a bit lower than $599. I understand bleeding edge technology. I completely understand. And I completely understand that somebody who would invest $950 into a high-class gaming PC would be game with spending that much money on a VR headset. But people who buy PS4s, people who buy Xbox Ones, people who buy Wii U's, people who even buy low-end PCs and just play the occasional MMO and MOBA and Steam game are not going to be spending $5.99 on a VR headset. And I will take the risk of saying that. I don't think that $5.99 is a good price for this. I think it's way too expensive. Maybe hopefully we see the price driven down as more people buy them, as cheaper alternatives come out. I mean, Razer is also working on, I believe, a $2.99 VR headset that's open source. So hopefully we see things get cheaper and we see the market adapt that. And I think that 2016 gonna be a big year for VR. We're gonna see Global Developer Conference, all VR. I'm saying it now. PlayStation's coming out in full force. They're saying this is us. We're doing VR. Oculus gonna come out full force. Developers get on this. Same thing with Valve. I mean, everybody loves Valve, or they used to. So they're going to get tons of developers. I think that this is the year of VR. This is the year that it finally starts making its mass market push. But in order to do that, we need affordable pricing, great lineup of games, and a clear messaging to these people. Because don't just tell them it can be used for games. Show them movie theaters. Put your headset on in your living room. You're in a movie theater. Do it. It wins over the people. It wins them over. Show them the virtual reality movie theater. Do it. Also, show us some awesome VR games. You guys are doing pretty good on it. Show me a Mega Man game in VR. Please. Capcom. Please. I want to thank you for joining me as we discussed VR on this episode of Street Talk. Remember, Street Talk, not the only show on this YouTube channel. Here I upload videos like this one where I talk about different topics within the gaming and entertainment industry. I also host a podcast called Word on the Street with a good friend of mine, Frankie. We talk about the nerdy news every week, and we are actually looking for some new guests. So if you watch this video and you want to be a guest, please let me know. We also have some bigger guests coming on later into 2016, which should be exciting. And I also have some more video content coming on the way, some Let's Plays, and some other ideas that are in the works. So, as always, I welcome all feedback down below, and thank you guys for watching. And until next time, I have some things I need to get back to. Excuse me. I missed you so much. I missed you too.